Welcome back. You're still watching S8 Today, and today the biggest story, of course, in the country and for many watching around the world has been the appearance of former President Jacob Zuma at the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. And helping us unpack day one is political analyst Levy Ndou. Thanks very much again for being with us. It's difficult to, I guess, assess whether it's been a good day for him because it's just the beginning. Largely because most of it was what he wanted to say and tell the Commission. The portion where the Q&A started, do you think he was convincing? Did he come across as someone who handled himself well?
Well, I want to agree with you. This was a very, very good day for President Zuma, even though he indicated that he has got a bit of a flu. I think it was a good opportunity for him to speak out about his frustrations. He became very emotional when he spoke about an attempt on his life, when he spoke about the extent in which his situation is also affecting his family, including his children, that some of his children could not even get employed because they are associated with him. For me, I think it then has to give him a relief that what has been in him for a very, very long time, he has been able to take it out very freely in a commission. But you know, when it comes to questions, that is where indeed we're going to get a lot that must come out from President Zuma. We don't know the kind of questions they're going to ask him. But for me, the purpose for the legal team, especially for the state, would be for him to be able to bring all the necessary information so that they get to the bottom of why they are in existence as a commission.
And he also hinted that he felt that he's had to keep quiet and bite his tongue for a very long time, and that he said that perhaps this is the time now to take a different approach. Almost as if there is so much that he's been wanting to say for a long time, and this is going to be his opportunity.
He wouldn't have such time or a moment to mention some of the things that he mentioned. For an example, he wouldn't sit with a cabinet minister and say, this cabinet minister that I appointed was once a spy. It wouldn't happen. It would only happen in a commission. But I think what he was trying to do was to create a narrative that says that even though I have people who worked for the apartheid system that I know, I still accommodated them because I did not want to create any conflict with anybody. But also at the same time, you have a situation where he's saying, if you put me in the corner or if you press harder, I will then be able to explode and say things that you never expected.
So people are going to have to try and make up their minds about how much he can remember or how much he's choosing not to, and weigh up the evidence. You start a company with the Guptas, you help them set up this television station and this newspaper. Is it reasonable to believe that he has no idea about the conversations that this family is having with the person who controls the advertising budget of government that may place commercials on these entities?
One of the revelations we got is that he indeed had to speak to certain individuals to ensure that the machinery of the television and the newspaper starts running. At least it was himself today who said, I even suggested a name for a television station. And that is participation. But what people need to know would be the extent of his participation, and indeed, why would you advise individuals to venture into that kind of a business? What then are the returns for you if you make such kind of proposals? But that is exactly what we're going to get when cross-examination has to kick in.
Do you think that this is going to be a common theme in his defense, where he says there are operational issues that I don't involve myself in? Those people who may have had these conversations with the Bosasas, with the airlines, with whoever, they did it of their own accord. Do you think that that perhaps is going to be the theme that we're going to see throughout, where he distanced himself from the activities of people below him?
Indeed, I see that happening on numerous occasions. Remember what we said earlier on, is that when people are involved in corrupt activities, they make sure that there is no evidence that is traceable from other people. And I'm not actually saying that President Zuma is corrupt,
Yes.
but what I'm saying is that those that are involved in corrupt activities will make sure that they cover their trails so that they are not seen. What I also expect is that he would try his best to show that as the president of the republic, he does not necessarily have to deal with the day-to-day activities in departments. And that is why certain individuals have to be deployed, and then they actually execute or do their work for him. If certain individuals are then mentioned, and then they feel that the information provided is not correct, maybe they will also apply to the commission to say, I need to come forward and present my side of the story.
So there are some pretty big issues that are still going to come. The Waterkloof landing. And the questions will be, could he have known, or should he have known, that his friends were going to land an entire 737, whatever it is, at a national key point? As the president, can nobody tell him? You know, there's some things that are high security, and this is a man who comes from an intelligent background, who seems to know a lot about a lot of things. Could he have not known at all that a whole aeroplane coming from India is going to land at a national key point?
It would depend on the extent of the relationship that he had with the Gupta families. Or it will also depend on the people that were deployed in certain areas of government to execute certain responsibilities. Maybe some would say, if we get an application from the Gupta family, well, let's quickly just implement this, make sure that they even land at Waterkloof. They are friends to the president.
But he wouldn't get briefed. National intelligence wouldn't say to the president, we've got this security issue, this plane looks like it's going to land at Waterkloof. What do we do?
In a high security level like that, indeed you'll expect the president to know. You'd also expect very senior government officials to know about it. And to a certain extent even report to the president that at a national key point there is a family that is going to land, and that is something that will not just happen easily. But also look at the numbers of the people that were there. There were just too many. To an extent, that is something that you cannot just ignore and say the high authority shouldn't know about it. My view is that he might have known about it and just said, no, it might be a minor thing, we can't actually take it seriously. Or he might not have known about it. Certain individuals might have said, these are the Gupta family, they are the friends to the president, it will be fine if they actually land there.
And also, Ambassador Kolwane did say, yes, I did drop his name, and so perhaps that might have fueled it and facilitated it.
That is a very, very big possibility. Remember, there were a lot of investigations that were done after the landing, and there is no finger that actually points at former President Zuma. And obviously, there might be reasons why a direct finger is not actually pointing at him.
But a big question he'll have to answer is, if somebody like Kolwane was found wanting by the investigations, is the punishment a posting to a key European destination? Is that an appropriate punishment?
Yes, in the ANC, that's an appropriate punishment. When you do wrong things,
you become an ambassador.
ANC, you become an ambassador. It has happened with a lot of individuals. If you do something wrong in the country, the best punishment you get is that of being an ambassador outside. And it creates a perception that for you to become an ambassador, you must start by doing wrong things, and then you'll get that lucrative appointment.
I get a sense also that so far what's going to happen is that it's going to be a he said, she said scenario, and that's going to make the Commission's job all the more difficult if both sides can't prove their versions. So, former Deputy Finance Minister says, I was offered money, and he says, no, I didn't. What do they do?
It might be something that is going to be very, very difficult for the Commission, because what I foresee is a situation where you're not going to get any document that is written down. You're not going to get minutes of any meeting that took place, and someone is actually going to say, yes, indeed this happened, and the other party will say nothing like that actually happened, and it will be up to the Commission to make a decision, which might not be very easy to take. But another area maybe that we need to look at is that there is a possibility that some of the names that are mentioned might still want to apply to the Commission to say, it is not true that I was a spy. The information that is being provided is not correct. Provide documents that I was a spy. Because what I liked about the statement from former President Zuma is that Mwaku Ramatlhodi was approached to become a spy.
Okay, he didn't actually say he accepted, although he did say, he said he was a spy. He said he was a spy.
I thought he had changed, yes.
I thought that he had changed.
That actually clearly means that indeed he was a spy.
So then, are we saying that he sat on this information all this time, waiting to see what might happen, or genuinely that he may have changed? Again, he's going to have to convince the Commission.
There are reasons, for me, few reasons maybe that made him to keep this information. One, maybe he kept the information for peace sake, to ensure that there is peace. We're now in democracy. I don't have to dig the ground to get all the people who did wrong. Maybe he wanted for the right moment, when he's actually got out of power, to say, even though I was in power for almost 9 years, there are people that I worked with who were actually spies. Or maybe he's doing it for the purposes of dealing with the people that are actually his enemies within the ANC.
Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula is going to have to come back to this Commission of Inquiry, one would imagine, because he was named. He said he went to see the Ruperts, and they said to him, if you fire Praveen, we are going to collapse this economy. And he came back and told that to the President. If that is true, then the Ruperts also must come to the Commission, one would imagine.
Yes, indeed they must, but for me it depends on the context, whether they were just providing an advice to a minister that they are close to say there are certain things that you should be careful of doing, or whether they were saying, go and tell President Zuma not to touch Pravin Gordhan. Or maybe they were saying, it's important for you guys in government to hear what our feelings or our opinions as business people, because we are interested in the economy. So there should be a number of reasons why these kind of statements came. But for me as well, I saw President Zuma trying his best to mention certain individuals for them to be implicated. Remember, the Commission is also dealing with how certain individuals outside government had to influence decisions. So he's saying it was not only the Guptas who wanted to have a view on certain things. Even the Ruperts also spoke to the minister about how I should actually reshuffle or handle my cabinet appointments.
What do you make of this narrative that he's always said that the state is comprised of the executive, the judiciary, and parliament, and that for state capture to have taken place, you have to have captured all three of those? And he's offered that as a defense, saying state capture is a myth.
Yeah, it actually depends on where he stands. And for me, he's trying to say that it is not possible for one individual to be captured, and that then goes to all the other layers of government. And for me, he's also trying to say that even though I had friends outside government, they wouldn't go to an extent of capturing me or capture certain individuals to an extent that it can actually go to all the different levels of government, including the provinces. And for me, it's trying to say that what South Africans have been convinced that it is existing does not necessarily exist, because for him, there is nothing called state capture. And it is not what he mentioned only today. He has been mentioning this all the time. But also at the same time, there are those who argue and say, as the state president, you're given powers by the Constitution to appoint ministers, you appoint senior government officials, and these senior government officials are found everywhere. So if you captured, then you can easily also capture or make sure that the capturing does exist in a smooth manner.
So one of the things that he has been accused of is being influenced in terms of ministerial appointments. He did say today categorically that, what did he say? He says they have no business with the ministers. So that's going to have to be tested, and he's almost said categorically that the Guptas had nothing to do with the ministers. If it then gets proved that they did, that could be a challenge for him.
Indeed, that will be a big problem. One of the statements that I captured very well is that he emphasized that when he had to appoint ministers, he consulted. And obviously when he says he consulted, it means he actually consulted his colleagues in the ANC. But then you need to remember that in the at the moment when he reshuffled cabinet twice in a year, there are certain individuals within the ANC and in government who said, we were never consulted about this kind of things.
All right, well, let's take a look and see what's happening on the stage. The former president is there chatting to Kebby Mapatswe there.